Ladies and gentlemen, Sandile Zungu.
The Vice Chancellor, SRC President, academic staff, graduates, parents, ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all. When the Vice Chancellor invited me to address this august occasion, I readily accepted, largely because I love UCT, which for your benefit, parents, is one of the best run universities in this country, if not in the world. Yet I knew fully well that it would be very difficult to capture your attention, as I will be standing between you, graduates, and one of your lifetime's ultimate moments of glory. When I grew up at Umlazi Township during the dreadful apartheid years, my loving parents, both working class, one a civil servant, a staff nurse, and the other a factory worker, would never let us go to bed on an empty stomach. I personally experienced neither hunger nor poverty, and was saved from the indignities of unemployment and their concomitant suffering. With their meager wages, they shepherded us, their children, both to church and to school, as though those were the only two institutions through which we could escape the daily ravages of the system. Notwithstanding my parents' heroism, as I call them, they couldn't cushion me from apartheid inequalities, which meant that I was destined to be disadvantaged relative to my erstwhile privileged compatriots. That I thrive today, and that I wish to believe I'm destined for some significance, it is largely because I refuse to carry a chip on my shoulder, realizing that if I did, then it could dent my chance of success in a globally competitive business environment, which is complex, and which in any case largely believes that it owes me nothing. My parents did what they had to do, and for that I'm eternally grateful. However, one person's complex journey of success cannot be explained solely by faith, good parenting, and choreographed snippets of libertarianism. Our challenges as a society are very complex, and in attempting to deal with them, we cannot escape the responsibility to look at matters collectively and more broadly. Simply put, to deliver a crushing blow to deep poverty, runaway unemployment, and widening inequalities in our society as a whole, and to add to that, pervasive corruption, then we need to look up to the collaborative powers of all of business, government, and society. Today, I just wish to make a case for sustainable and inclusive economic growth nevertheless, as a catalyst and pivot around which we can address the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Ultimately, it is through a growing economy that more and more people can undertake their own journeys of success and narrate them. Similar journeys, but different. And conversely, the more such individual journeys of success are experienced and told, the more South Africa will also grow, expanded and taken to its logical conclusion. Societal transformation is necessary for growth, and growth is necessary for societal transformation. Why growth matters? There is no trade-off, no choice to be made between growth and poverty alleviation. The last 35 years demonstrates quite amply that fast growth in a modernizing economy is the most potent anti-poverty program in human history. China, in this case, is a poster economy of this phenomenon. Over the last 35 years, China's growth has lifted 500 million people out of poverty, many of them into the middle class. In 1978, per capita Chinese income was equivalent of 160 rands in today's money. Today, it is the equivalent of 5,000 rands per month. But it is not only China. Countries as diverse as India, Turkey, Brazil, Vietnam, Mexico, and Mozambique, in the same period, cumulatively enabled hundreds of millions of their citizens to escape poverty through the engine of economic growth. Since 1994, we have seen some of the growth effect in our own country as the democratic government first fostered growth and then put in place programs to support the poor. According to recent research, government grant programs have elevated 3.6 million South Africans above poverty levels. It's highly commendable. We as a country felt we could afford extensive grant programs because relatively fast growth in the economy during the period up to 2008 transformed our tax base, ably tended by SARS. During that period, growth also added a substantial number of jobs in the services sector. Growth also allowed government to add many jobs in the public sector. If growth has materially mattered historically, then what has happened to it? Since 2008, South Africa's economy has grown by no more than 1 to 2% per year. And we have at times flirted with a number of instances of near recession. As commerce graduates, you know that the world changed in 2008 as the financial crisis brought to a screeching halt a decade of easy credit, expanded export markets, and a commodities supercycle. It will be an error, though, to blame our slowdown in growth entirely on the crisis of 2008 and its long aftermath. If we compare South Africa to our peer group of large emerging economies, including countries such as Indonesia, Mexico, and Turkey, we see the following. Compared to our peers, we have, after 2008, consistently had slower growth, higher inflation, less job creation, and lower export growth. That is in relative terms. Why could we as a country not simply pick up where we had left off before the global crisis intervened? We grew well during the period 1998 to 2008. Surely we should do the same and growth will resume. Why could we as a country not simply pick up where we had left off before the global crisis intervened? This is true, but only to a point. My message today is that the growth has changed in the years that you graduates have been at university, and that if South Africa wishes to grow, it needs to change with the world. In other words, in a changed world, South Africa's growth logic has to change too. Let's consider the first, how the world and circumstances have changed. The first change is that the engines that powered South Africa's growth during the period 2000 to 2008 have been switched off. The first engine was unprecedented growth in Chinese demand for commodities during this period, which led to historically high prices for commodities, sustained over a number of years. During that period, the infrastructure boom in China absorbed between a third and 50% of global demand for a range of inputs, including steel, cement, glass, and soda ash. The list goes on. Global commodity prices started rising the moment Chinese GDP growth became commodity intensive. In other words, demand for our commodities in South Africa grew more quickly than our own economy. But that trend has reversed. Economic growth in China has not only slowed down, but it has also become more commodity light, with less heavy infrastructure in place. We cannot bet on rising commodity prices, therefore, to create the impression of growth in South Africa over the next 10 years. The other major engine of growth in South Africa during the high growth years was a rapid increase in household consumption, fueled by debt. As the demise of the once rampant African bank will show, South African households, many of which are civil servants and working class households, have reached or perhaps exceeded their debt ceilings. Government has also intervened, rightfully so, through the National Credit Regulator to stop households abetted by reckless lenders from doing themselves harm. As with commodity prices, South Africa's growth path in the short term in the future will not be able to rely on a sea change in household consumption, therefore. We must continue to transform, though, to deal with our peculiar challenges. There we stop. To do so, we need to enter a new era of growth and prosperity. And I'm afraid this one we'll have to create ourselves as dynamic South Africans. Challenges notwithstanding, yes, we are in a world filled with new opportunities. You will know, as well as I do, that the revolution in digital communications is only in its infancy. As individuals and as a country, we are part of a multitude of global networks of knowledge, collaboration, friendship, and entertainment. This disruptive revolution in digital communications has already changed the way we live. It will continue to upend old industries, create new ones, and enable new business models and new careers to emerge. Also in our region, Africa, we have turned a corner in terms of economic dynamism. Africa is now a sprightly fountain of global economic growth. It is a source of world-class entrepreneurs and a generator of new business models, spanning banking, communications, and agriculture. And back in our own country, 20 years on, democracy has created not only a large black consuming class, but most importantly, a new group of business creators and business managers, modern, outward-looking, seasoned, and successful. What I see before me in this graduating class of 2014 is symbolic of a larger change in our society. Latent talent is coming to the surface, and given the space to prove itself and prosper, sure it will. Opportunities allow us to explore and consider a new economic growth logic. Let me offer just a few beacons before I conclude to help us find a route. First, our growth path will be outward-looking, based on exports. Because our credit is maxed out as a household sector, government, and country, we cannot create more internal demand. So we have to grow by servicing the world and by competing in it. It means we have to be competitive in terms of human capital and its cost, in terms of physical infrastructure, and in terms of the quality and sophistication of our businesses. Second, the growth path will harness the skills, capability, and capital of the private sector more than before. Only a few years ago, our mantra as a country was that of a developmental state. And now, the lingo talks of a capable developmental state. Clearly, the need for development is undiminished. But looking around us at key parts of the economic infrastructure, such as power, communications, and transport, it is very clear that the state cannot carry this burden alone. We need to move from a developmental state to a developmental society in which the dynamism of the individual entrepreneurs and the private sector as a whole is both encouraged and utilized, even in areas that traditionally were the preserve of the state, but where there's been underperformance. including health and education. Third, our growth path will require good ideas and courage in equal parts. We need good ideas because we need to upgrade the operating system of our country to be competitive in the world. And that will take courage, as vested interests and traditional ways of doing business will be called to question increasingly. Fourth, we have to forge our growth path in a shared and inclusive sense of the South Africa we want to build. In becoming more explicit about our destination as a country, we cannot forget where we have come from and how far we have to go. Equity, justice, and solidarity are part of our DNA as a nation, and we have to be proud of that. We are a nation that can do great things. To do these things, we need your energy, your skills now manifest, and your optimism. No matter what the news headlines of the day or the week may say, graduates, there is no better time than now to be graduating and to be embarking on this collective journey. I wish to extend my most sincere congratulations to you, graduates, on your success, and wish you the best in your future endeavors. And do remember one thing, though, as you embark on your similar but different journeys, inclusive economic growth matters. I thank you.